Hey, Shalom. First, I would like to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh in the name of Yahweh Shai. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Peace and blessings to the hope elect in the house of David. Let's get into this. This is going to be about, hey, look, the Lord is with you, The Lord is with you. The Lord is going to be with you in the times of trouble. Or I'm going to probably call it you and the Lord. You and the Lord, you know? Because to get through this thing, the most terrible time that is about to come upon the earth, we have to believe Yahweh Shem Yahushua is with us. We have to believe that He is with us. That He's going to go with us into trouble, into Jacob's trouble, all the way up into deliverance. All the way up into deliverance. If that be your lot, or, all the way up into the guillotine. We ain't gonna shy from that. All the way up into death. Be faithful unto death. You probably end up rejoicing because you're about to get the guillotine, but you have to believe that He is gonna be with you. I gotta stop saying But let's just jump into scriptures. Like I love to do. I hate rambling. Sometimes I like to ramble, but I like the scriptures to speak mostly. This is Isaiah chapter 43, verse 1. But now, thus said Yahweh, the Lord now captures Yahweh, that created thee, O Jacob, and He that formed thee, O Israel, fear not. For I have redeemed thee. I have called thee by name. Thou art mine. He have called you by name. What? Jacob, the 12 tribes. He called you by 12 tribes. He called you by your tribes. He called you by your bloodline. He called you by your bloodline. But not only that, He called you personally. He called you personally. When you heard this truth, and then you went to, you had that moment. He called you. He called you. He called you Sarah. He called you Zahab, Ayash, Nabah, Anah, Abadia, Abad Yabad, Yeramya, He called you. He called y'all by name. I was just calling out Hebrew names that came into my mind. Most of them was brothers. But yeah, He called y'all by name. He called y'all out of this world. He called you. Listen. Verse 2, when thou passest through the waters, I will be with thee. And though the rivers, they shall not overflow thee. When thou walkest through the fire, thou shalt not be burnt, neither shall the flame kindle upon thee. We're gonna read that latter part again. Listen. When thou walkest through the fire, thou shalt not be burnt, neither shall the flame kindle upon thee. It says, when thou shalt walk through the fire. What? These tribulations we finna go through. These troubles we finna go through. When you say, I've chosen you to the furnace of affliction, yeah, we're gonna be put in that fire, but what? He's not gonna allow us to melt. He's not gonna allow us to melt within the flames. He's not gonna allow us to melt within the flames. Listen to this. This is 1 Corinthians 10 and 13. Listen. There have no temptation taken you but such as common to man, But Yahweh Shem Yahushai is faithful, who will not suffer you to be tempted above that ye are able, but will with the temptation also make a way to escape, that ye may be able to bear it. You know, when you're walking through that flame, it's gonna be bearable. These flames we're gonna go through, it's gonna be bearable. If it get too hot, he's gonna Yahweh Shem Yahushua is gonna intervene. Him taking us out of fire is him performing miracles for us. You find some water, you find some food, something miraculous happened to deliver you out of a situation. That's him pulling you out that fire, dump you in that water, then pin you back in that fire. But each time you go back into that fire, it gets what it ain't gonna be. You won't, that heat won't bother you anymore, because what, you becoming purer and purer. You're able to handle more and more. These situations we're gonna go through is gonna be causing us to increase in faith and faith and faith and faith. It's gonna increase us in faith. Let's go back to Isaiah. It's Isaiah chapter 43. 43, verse 2. We're gonna get that other part. I'm gonna read that first part where we just got through, what we just read, what we just broke down. When thou walkest through the fire, thou shalt not be burned. We understand what that means. He, with the temptation, making a way escape. But also, he's gonna be taking us out, then putting us back in. He ain't gonna let us melt. Neither shall the flame kindle upon thee, the nuclear destruction. You ain't gotta worry about that. Unless you're a 2/3. You ain't gotta worry about that. That flame ain't gonna touch you. That flame ain't gonna touch you, man. Listen to this. Precept for that. This is Job. Chapter 5, verse 19. Listen. He shall deliver thee in 6 troubles. You're gonna be in trouble with. You're gonna be in it. You're gonna be in a temptation. You're gonna be in a mix of trouble. But what, he gonna deliver you? He gonna deliver you out of 6 troubles, Famine, the sword, destruction, Yea, in the 7th shall no evil touch thee, the nuclear destruction, Let's read verse 20. In famine he shall redeem thee from death, and in war from the power of the sword. What he say? While y'all roughly paraphrasing, while the world starve, you're going to be laughing, you're going to be eating, you're going to be merry, while everybody else mourning, suffering, or, becoming more and more cold-hearted, crazy, dying, That's what's going to be happening, Let's get this. Now we're going to go back to Isaiah. We're going to end it off there. Oops, I'm tripping. This is Isaiah chapter 43, verse 3. Listen. For I am Yahweh thy power, the Holy One of Israel, thy Savior. I gave Egypt for a ransom, and Ethiopian Seba for thee. He had to read that, because what he's declaring that he is the power. He overtaken Egypt. He's gonna overtake spiritual Egypt. He gave Egypt to them. When it was blacked out, when the Lord blacked out Egypt, Israel still had light. When all them plagues was in the land of Egypt, none of it touched all the Israelites. He gave Egypt. That's the meaning of he gave Egypt to thee. He's gonna do the same in New Egypt, the spiritual Egypt. He's gonna do the same in that. So what? Yahweh Shem Yahushua is gonna be with you in temptation. Just you have to believe on him. So with that, I hope you was edified. Again, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh. In the name of Yahweh Shai, double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Peace and blessings to the hopeful elect, the house of David. Until next time, Yahweh willing, Shalom.